Well, hello again. We're back this time to some roofing that's going to be right in front of a dormer section. In another segment, we're going to go over to a chimney, and really a dormer, a chimney, and a skylight are all going to be flashed in very similar fashions. You can see that I've applied a couple of courses of shingles coming up to the dormer. If this top course of shingles was a couple of inches longer, one thing I would suggest is simply to do a relief cut right at the edges of the dormer and turn a couple inches of the shingle up the side of the dormer to kind of act as a water stop, just in case any water does get underneath the apron flashing that we're going to be putting down. But in this case, the top fell just short of this, so I'm going to run it up here, and I would go ahead and attach it to the top wall here. I wouldn't cut off the nailing tabs. And then I'm going to form what we would call an apron flashing. This apron flashing I want to make approximately 10 inches wider than my dormer or my chimney or skylight, whatever the protrusion is, because the water return channel of my sidewall pieces is about 4 inches. And I want this water return channel to dump out on top of this apron flashing. So I'm going to make this 5 inches beyond each corner of the dormer. Again, I'm going to select a convenient width of coil stock. If the coil stock is 24 inches wide, I'm probably either going to use 12 inches or 8 inches of coil in order to do this. If this top lock falls perhaps 4 inches or 3 inches, maybe even 2 inches, 6 inches from the top wall, I'm going to make this bottom hem hook into my top lock of the shingle. But because in this instance the top lock is so close to this transition point, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to bring my apron flashing out about 4 inches, just something that aesthetically looks pleasing, and that's probably a pretty good distance. I'm going to form an underturn hem of about 5/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to produce a fold at about 3/4 of an inch back. That's going to give some rigidity and stability to the piece. This, of course, represents my fold that at the point at which I'm going to go up the sidewall. And before I put that in, you can see I've marked here, this distance is about 4 inches, and here I've got 5 inches by 5 inches, and I've cut this out at a 45-degree angle. This tab is going to be folded back to wrap around the side of the dormer, and of course I have the same thing on the other side. I'm going to overbend it just a little so that it hugs the sides of the dormer. I'm going to fit it up to the dormer on both sides. I'm going to fold this tab down. This tab would have been up like this. I'm going to fold it down to the deck, and then at that point I'm ready to go ahead and attach my flashing to the deck. This is our sidewall flashing, and you notice as I go up underneath the gable here, I had to cut some of the sidewall flashing down because I have my roof rafters coming there, and I want to be able to slide this sidewall flashing as far up underneath as I can possibly go. So through kind of trial and error, I've cut out that so that it's going to slip right on up there as far as I possibly can get it. First thing I would do is I'd put this I'd get that cut out so that it slides up there, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to mark this angle. I'm going to take a 1-inch ruler past that mark and make it mark so that I can make this wraparound tab. And again, I'm going to cut straight up from this intersecting point so that I can take this painted material and wrap it back around the unpainted material. Basically, I want to make this come out far enough so it's at least a 1/2 inch beyond this top lock, or this top lock of this particular shingle. And of course, I'm going to go up the side of the sidewall flashing here. I'm going to secure this to the deck with nailing clips. May not be able to get any more clips up here. On this particular case, we will probably put some nails into the vertical leg of the sidewall flashing and attach it to the dormer. And last of all, I'm going to come back with some sealant, and I'm going to want to seal this joint right there, and of course on the other side as well. I'm ready to put my first panel into the sidewall channel. As is usual, I needed to cut out this drain slot in the butt of the shingle, and I bumped it up just slightly to go over this return hem, and I also had to mark it in order to come over this flashing. So that's all the way out to here, and my return hem comes up right here, and then I've cut it off the rest of the way. One thing you're going to note here is that I had to cut off enough so that I can slide this all the way to the right in order to insert it into the left, the side lock over here on the left. So I'm going to be able to push it in, then I'll come back, make sure it's all the way down to the deck. As you can see, it comes in here, but you do have to leave a little bit of a gap in order, again, to get the shingle into place. We are at the top of a dormer situation where we're going to have 2 intersecting valleys. And I've drawn some lines here. You can see that I've drawn one line right along the ridge of the dormer and brought it up to the ridge of the main part of the structure. And I've drawn a couple of lines that correspond to the center of the valley. And of course, I want both of my valley pans to be precisely centered on those lines. Now I've measured that distance from this intersecting point down to the eave, and I got about 4 foot. Well, I'm going to need a piece of valley that's perhaps 1.5 feet longer than that. I want to be able to center it on this line and come down so that the outer edge of the valley is perhaps just a 1/2 inch past the edge trim, the starter strip there. So this is how I'm going to want the bottom to be positioned. And I come up to the top here. I make sure that the pan is centered on the valley. I've marked this point down here and up here where it crosses that center line. And I marked a point right here in the middle, which is right in line with the ridge line. What I'm going to need to do is cut a relief cut along the center line back to this, and then I'm going to fold this part of the valley over, down into here and over here, and I'll just secure it with one nail all the way at the corner and then one nail up here, and then I'll be able to bring in my valley pan from the other side. I'm just going to go ahead right now, even at this point, and I'm going to put one nail right here. I'm going to put one nail out here. I want to keep it several inches away from the very center. Wouldn't be a bad idea to put a little sealant around that nail. Okay, as you can see, I have now laid the second valley piece in place. I've got it aligned with the center of the valley at the bottom there, and I have it protruding just, a half an inch or so over the drip edge down there at the bottom. So then I'm going to come up here at the top, and I'm going to do a stair step cutout here in this second piece so that it's able to lap over the ridge. Now, the first part of the stair step I'm going to want to lie right along with this hem, so I just kind of line this up here, and I'm going to mark a line representing that cut, and then I'm going to cut down through here. I've got about 3 layers of metal to do there, so that's going to take a little bit of muscle and some sharp tin snips. This upper line is going to correspond with this other hem on the inside, and I've kind of lined that up, and right now I can see I'm going to cut it a little long because I can always cut a little more off. So there's that cut line, and then I'm going to cut up the center. Once I get this back into position here, we're just going to make sure that I'm pretty much have it where I want it to be, and it looks pretty good. I'm going to have to do just a little bit of a relief cut here in the center. Now that this is right along this center line, I'm going to back this out, and right where I've got the mark here, I'm going to take my aviation snips. I'm going to take my flangers. I'm going to start my bend there, and probably just by hand here, I'm going to be able to bend it over what will be the ridge line. I'm going to push this up underneath that. I'm going to slide that up into that slot that I just cut there. Okay, at this point, this is pretty much how I want it to be configured. I'm going to come back with some sealant, and I can trace my pattern here. And then come back and put sealant all along there, nice and thick, and even in this cut as well. Come back and put that in place, and again I can put a couple of nails, but I'm only going to do so at the outermost edges. Okay, remember not to penetrate the inside of the valley pan that's going to be exposed with any nails. Simply going to want to apply sealant in these areas. One thing to remember is that when you're doing this, if possible, you might want to keep this side away from the predominant angle from which people will look at the dormer and the valleys. So that way you don't see any seams on this side, the sealant, and the seams are on the side away, predominantly away from view. After we've done this initial installation, then of course you come back with nail clips, 1 foot on center, and I would suggest putting them directly opposite each other on both sides of the valley pans. Again, apart from what we've done up here, you're not even going to penetrate these outer pans with nails. You're simply going to use the nail clips. Okay, we've come to the point where our top course now is going to intersect with the valley. This particular course right here, we're going to want to run under the valley. The next course we're going to bring over the valley and lock into this hem. I do want you to notice again that we basically have brought the valley to the edge of the drip edge, and this will completely dump out on top of the shingles. Now, I've got some fascia here on the eave of the dormer, and I've made a piece to go up underneath this. Now I want you to notice that I've turned back 1/4 of an inch or so just as a rain stop. I measured the distance from my top lock up under here to see how long this exposure needs to be, and of course I've cut it at the appropriate width to go up under. This is going to take a little bit of finesse to get into place. Looks like it's going okay. Knock that into place, and at this point I can still get up underneath this to be able to attach this to the deck. I may need to use a nail clip in order to do that. Okay, now we have reached the point where our course on top is going to lap over the valley pan, and I have placed my shingle over the valley and marked the points where the shingle intersects this hem, and also marked the point where the hem on the valley pan meets the shingle. I then have taken the shingle, I've bent a taper into it from a 1/2 inch all the way to an 1/8 at the top, and I've got a 5/8 inch underturn hem to go back into the receiving channel on the valley. I also have cut out the butt of the shingle to the point where it comes out and goes over the hem on the valley pan. I'll slide it over the hem first, and I'm going to slide it up. And now any moisture that might possibly get onto this pan through condensation or whatever will be able to drain out. You notice that this cut in the butt of the shingle is just high enough to allow just a little bit of water to come out, but is not really going to be visible from down below on the ground. Again, we never nail in the valley pan itself. And just for illustration purposes here, we've just done this shingle. We don't have the shingles to the left.
Best Buy Metals is a nationwide distributor of KasselWood steel shingles, along with other premium metal shingles manufactured by Isaiah Industries. Specializing in superior customer support and service, Best Buy has a team ready to help you determine the ideal roofing solution for your project. With core values such as committed customer service, expert-level knowledge, and creativity, along with over 50 years of combined experience, Best Buy's team is the perfect partner to ensure your project goes smoothly. Contact Best Buy Metals today at 1-800-728-4010 or online at www.bestbuymetals.com.